Doctor Who season by season. Season 20 review. Season 20 was, as the name suggests, the 20th anniversary season of Doctor Who, broadcast in 1983. It was the second season to star Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor and the third to be produced by John Nathan Turner after the decidedly mixed Season 18 and the less than stellar Season 19. Received fan opinion tends to view Season 20 as something of a dud, but for neither the first nor the last time in these reviews received fan opinion can go take a running jump in the lake as far as I'm concerned. Let me be clear, I think Season 20 is great. The season begins with Arc of Infinity, which admittedly is not the greatest way to start any season, let alone an anniversary one. A rather stupid runaround that crudely tries to combine a tedious Gallifrey traitor plot. Fuck me, it's Michael Gough. They could have at least tried to remotely disguise his voice, with a pointless foreign excursion to Amsterdam so cast and crew could avail themselves of some cheap hash and even cheaper hookers. Not that I'm suggesting any of them did, of course. Perish the thought. Arc is written by Johnny Byrne, who is not exactly my idea of a great Who writer, with this Boreathan following the Boreathan that was Keeper of Traken, and which in turn will be followed by the Boreathan that is Warriors of the Deep. The only good things about Arc of Infinity are future Sixth Doctor Colin Baker hamming it up as Max Sill, doing his level best to turn a minor asshole guard character into the central villain, and Sarah Sutton, who has improved enormously since her early days and actually gets the chance to have something to do, including being amusingly trigger-happy being the solo companion for most of this tale. They then go and bring back that fucking whiner Tegan back at the end, just to rub salt in the wound. Davison is pretty terrible in this too, with the Fifth Doctor coming across as a thoroughly placid, lifeless, colorless wimp. Goodness me. Anyway, let us move swiftly on as, just in case you were thinking you'd misheard me at the start of this video, I do actually like this season. Next up is Snakedance. Now, given that this story is a sequel to, kinda, is one of the biggest piles of crap in the previous season and one of the biggest piles of overrated, pseudo-intellectual pieces of shit in the entire series, you could be forgiven for thinking I wouldn't like this one either. You'd be wrong. Snakedance is actually really good. It has an actual plot, for one thing, which immediately puts it above kinda, and one that actually makes sense too. Despite the studio-bound limitations of the production, it actually has some really good world-building along with some really good characters and actors, and comes across as a genuinely engaging and eerie little supernatural chiller. Even the giant snake at the end is nowhere near as comically risible as the one at the end of kinda. Davison has some life to him in this one, and shockingly both Nyssa and Tegan are pretty good here, Sutton and Janet Fielding both apparently having gone to acting school between seasons. All in all, Snakedance is a winner. Next up is Mawdryn Undead, which is, shockingly, even better. In fact, I'd go so far as to call Mawdryn Undead a bona fide classic and one of the best stories of the Davison era. It does a timey-wimey plot decades before Moffatti came along, and far less irritatingly than most of his smuggery. It also brings back the Black Guardian, Valentine Isle mugging splendidly as arguably the biggest big bad in the Who universe, returns Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, well, two versions of the Brigadier in fact, for the first time in 7 years, and he's just as class as ever, and even introduces a decidedly different new companion in Erlo, played entertainingly hammily by Mark Strickson, who's actually planning to kill the Doctor on behalf of the Black Guardian. And none of that even mentions the actual Mawdryn plot. Mawdryn is complex as fuck yet never seems overstuffed or difficult to follow, and is so well written, made and acted that it's just cracking entertainment. The only naff bit is the bit where the companions regress to children, one of whom hilariously turns out to be Julie from Press Gang. Tee-hee. Next up is Terminus. Terminus is a famously criticized story, yet I've never had a problem with it, to be honest. It's not one of my favorites of the season, yet it certainly isn't bad and is definitely miles better than Arc of What the Hell Is This Supposed to Be About. Terminus is actually a slice of pure SF within the series, and a rather good one with a nicely doom-laden atmosphere. It's a bit slow, but not boring in my opinion, and the Tegan and Turlo scenes, which also often come in for much criticism, are actually really good and develop the characters nicely, both in terms of their relationship and Turlo's growing doubts over the deal with the devil he's got himself into. Enlightenment is the end of the so-called Black Guardian trilogy and is an absolute cracker of a story. This is a magnificently surreal story that seems very different to the norm in this often somewhat too straightforward era, with some breathtaking scenes set on the outer deck of the ship that really is superbly strange, eerie and atmospheric in the extreme. The guest cast is excellent, particularly Keith Barron and the guy who plays Tegan's eternal stalker, and all three of the regulars are on top form too, which really demonstrates the difference between this season and the often amateur hour feel of much of season 19. This is a fantastic story. The King's Demons is a rather impromptu end to the season, and a bit of turkey, albeit thankfully a short one. It's decidedly odd too, as part 1 is actually pretty good with a good guest cast and period atmosphere, but part 2 turns into a completely plotless runaround that turns all said guest cast into unlikable assholes while introducing the stupidest regular since Adric and Chameleon, the shape-shifting real-life robot that no one knew how to work and doesn't appear again until its hurried exit in Planet of Fire the following year. Well, thanks for that then. The season was supposed to end with a Dalek story from Eric Sword called War Game or something, but BBC Strikes, yes the same one that fucked up Shada back in the day, put the kibosh on that. It reappeared the following season as the terrible resurrection of the Daleks, though, so it seems we didn't miss much. Of course, The King's Demons was not the end for the 20th anniversary of Who at all, as later in the year we got the 5 Doctors which, as Colin Baker might say, I'm including as part of season 20 whether you like it or not. The 5 Doctors is a brilliant anniversary special and certainly the best feature-length complete story we ever got. Fuck Day of the Doctor. Fuck it hard. This is how you do an anniversary show, Moffat. What? Writer Terrance Dicks does a stellar job of a difficult brief, and manages to bring back the atmosphere of long-gone eras into the current series brilliantly, which is a damn sight more than Moffat managed to do with his 8th anniversary new series celebration jerk-off session. The 5 Doctors is wonderful, nostalgic fun and a fantastic end to a generally excellent season, the best from JNT to this point. I think season 20 is also the best Davison season and comes in at number 8 in my all-time top 10. I am happy to give it an A-.